Hello and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, participants at a colloquium in Abuja, including the Sultan of Sokoto, bear their minds on the need to protect the unity of Nigeria as the event gets rowdy over debate on restructuring. Southern leaders gather in Lagos insist that restructuring is the only way to ensure Nigeria's peaceful coexistence. 10 persons feared dead following a clash between two communities in Delta State. Residents trade blame over cause of conflict. And Angolans vote in the parliamentary election expected to usher in the country's first new leader in 38 years.
On Business News tonight, United Nations Industrial Organization asks Nigerian entrepreneurs to harness full potentials of information technology for business development.
While in sports news, Commonwealth Games champion Odunayo Akeogoye becomes the first African woman to win a medal in the World Wrestling World Championships.
From Abuja, President Buhari receives reports of the panel that investigated the suspended SGF and Director General of a National Intelligence Agency over alleged corruption.
We begin tonight with renewed calls to strengthen Nigeria's unity and oneness by the Sultan of Sokoto, His Eminence Muhammad Sa'ad Abubakar III. The Sultan appears confident that the country's unity should not be compromised by anyone or any group in the wake of recent agitations for restructuring of the country. He was among eminent Nigerians who attended a colloquium organized by the Nigeria Labour Congress in Abuja today with the theme, the Labour Movement and the Future of a United Nigeria. But the meeting took a different turn when the former governor of Edo State, Mr. Adams Oshomole, alleged that those calling for restructuring of the country are politicians who lost the 2015 general elections.
Nigeria unity is non-negotiable.
Issues of restructuring has for some time now dominated discourse in many fora. The issue also came up at this event organized by the Nigeria Labour Congress in Abuja. Before now, the federal government has sued for peace amongst the agitators. Organized meeting with religious and traditional rulers to ensure the unity of the country. Each of the leaders who were at the meeting with government officials promised to ensure that the unity of the country is not jeopardized. But it appears that is not enough. At this meeting, eminent Nigerians suggest what must be done to protect the unity of the country.
And the greatest thing we could do for this country is to always reflect on our history, who we are. We didn't fall from the sky. We came from somewhere. We became Nigeria in 1914, amalgamation. But people keep on shouting the mistake of 1914. God doesn't make mistakes. If God doesn't want anything to happen, nobody would ever make it happen.
Different speakers identify review of the revenue allocation formula and the federal character representation as some of the areas to be resolved to calm the nerves of champions of restructuring.
We must confront restructuring, but we must do other things that are actually driving agitation. Issues of development, issue of a state that is not relevant to the people. Nigerians want a state that is accountable.
And then it was time for the former governor to share his thoughts on the call for restructuring.
There was a power change which Nigeria voted for, and suddenly people who have simply just lost out just find a new buzzword called restructuring. And many of these people have been
Some of them left the hall. After about 3 minutes, the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress appeals for calm.
say
Mr.
to all of
Oshomole
us,
then makes his point.
I believe the unity of Nigeria I accept in total, and I'm not saying it for the first time, the unity of Nigeria is not negotiable. Just like the unity of NSC is not negotiable. But the governance of our country, the quality of leadership, we must continue to review it and continue to engage it.
As the debate on how to sustain the unity of the country continues, many Nigerians are watching to see how the government intends to tackle the issues headlong in the days ahead.
Very vital one of it is.
Meanwhile, some leaders from the southern region of Nigeria today met in Lagos to discuss the state of the nation as the calls for restructuring continue to dominate political discourse in the country. They say Nigeria's existence as a union must be negotiated by every ethnic nationality. The group, made up of elder statesmen, insists that only restructuring will ensure the unity, peace and development of Nigeria. Our political correspondent Sheung Okimbaloye reports.
We both came to the conclusion.
It was his first address to the nation since returning after 100 days on medical vacation in London. Short, but the almost 5-minute speech is generating so much reactions.
The National Assembly and the National Council of States are the legitimate and appropriate bodies for national discourse.
That portion of the president's speech is what the Southern Leaders Forum here have come to address. Agitations have been rife. It grew in the past months over the need for the ethnic nationalities to sit down to resolve the issues confronting Nigeria as a nation.
Distinguished leaders of our people.
This is a concern of these leaders who believe President Buhari's Monday broadcast did not address the salient issues causing the tension in the country.
That we should remain united does not foreclose discussions of the terms and conditions of the union. The claim that Nigeria's unity is settled and non-negotiable is therefore untenable. Every country is a daily dialogue, and there's nothing finally settled in his life.
The group gives their advice on what the president must do to douse the tension.
We call on the president to realize that the country is in a very bad shape at the moment and requires statesmanship and not ethnic, religious, regional, and political partisanships. This is time to renegotiate Nigeria along federal lines negotiated by our founding fathers to stem the tide of separatist feelings and agitations.
The national consensus.
The president has spoken, and several other voices are pushing their own stands on issues bordering on national unity, with reports of different conferences lying in the shelves. The way forward for the nation will be a critical decision for the political elites to consider in the coming days or months. Sheung Okimbaloye reporting for Channels Television News.
In the meantime, the presidency is not rejecting the calls for restructuring of Nigeria's political system. Rather, they are insisting that it's not a decision President Muhammadu Buhari can force on Nigerians. The senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Mr. Garba Shehu, explains that the president is only constitutionally bound to work with the lawmakers on how to deal with such complex issues and will not exercise arbitrary powers or bypass the legislature. He says the president has no power to impose restructuring on the country by military dictate. The National Assembly members are elected representatives of the people who can handle agitations for restructuring and other constitutional changes. End of quote. Mr. Garba Shehu adds that though Nigerians are free to express themselves, they should exercise such liberty with restraint and a sense of responsibility. Now, senators from the southeastern part of Nigeria are working towards ensuring that members of the independent people of Biafra toe the path of peace. The leader of the Senate caucus, Senator Eyinaya Abaribe, after a meeting with IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu in his home, insists that the unity of the country cannot be compromised. However, the IPOB leader, who agreed that peace is important, hinted that IPOB is not a violent movement. And to discuss the restructuring debate and its implications for the unity of the country, I'm now being joined on the News at 10 by a historian and a member of the Southern Leaders Forum, Professor Banji Akintoye. Thanks so much for joining us on the News at 10, Professor.
Thank you.
Now, there's no shortage of opinions, obviously, on what restructuring should be. Is it all about politics, like the former Edo State governor, implied there in his statement?
No, it's not about politics. Actually, most of us who are leading this fight, the call for restructuring, are too old to be involved in partisan politics of any kind, and we are not involved. It's just that we are worried about the future of this country, and we want this country preserved. That's why we are doing what we are doing.
So what does restructuring mean to you?
Restructuring means that we return to the federal system, the system of relationship between the federal government and the federating units that we had until the military got involved in our politics in 1966. Our founding fathers sat down in conference after conference, through crisis after crisis, and knocked together an idea and a structure of federation for us. It worked very well. Under that arrangement, each federating unit, that is the regions, had its own constitution, the power over its own resources to develop them, and those are the two components. The law to do your own things in your own way, at your own pace, and the control, the actual legal ownership and control and development of your resources. The result was that our three regions, North, East, West, did very good things for us in the First Republic. That was an era of great development in this country, because the three regions were completely. Each had control of its own resources, did its own things in its own way, and brought a lot of development and wealth creation to our land.
But now you see the president has said in his broadcast there that our the unity of Nigeria is settled. But groups like yours have said we must have another national discourse to sit down.
No, I hope, if the president really knows what he means by unity, then maybe, because the thing is, unity can mean the oneness, the existence of Nigeria as one country. That's unity of Nigeria, yes. What we are talking about, that's not what we are talking about. We are not disputing the unity, the oneness of Nigeria. What we are asking for is that the terms of our union needs to be negotiated now very urgently, because the circumstances have changed. Poverty has taken over our land because the component parts of the federation, the federating units, are not able to develop their resources, and they do not have the control over their own resources. The federal government, under the military, from 1966 to 69, has progressively taken everything away from the federating units and put them in the federal government. The federal government have become large, pudgy, inefficient, corrupt, and so a lot of poverty in our land. We want to go back to what our founding fathers negotiated and gave to us in the 1950s, which served us very well. That's what we mean by restructuring, essentially. Of course, circumstances have changed a little in the sense that we don't have just 3 regions now. We went up from 3 to 4, now we are 36 federating units, okay, we'll find a way to deal with that. But the most important thing about restructuring is returning the powers to the federating units so that they can develop their resources, fight poverty among their people, and bring success to our country.
All right, historian and Southern Leaders Forum member, Professor Banji Akintoye,
yes.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on the news at 10 tonight. And in part 2, after the break, youths protest the escape of man allegedly responsible for the rape and killing of 8-year-old girl in Port Harcourt, River State. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.